Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's conversation on democratizing mentorship for the next generation of women changemakers. My name is Gabby Alvarado, and I am part of ThinkWell's communication team. And today I will be supporting with all tech-related things. Before I hand it over to my colleague, Dr. Marife, who will be moderating today's discussion, I want to quickly go through 3 housekeeping items. First, everyone except for the panelists and moderator will be muted. Second, though microphones are muted, we do want to hear your questions, and we encourage you to use the chat function to send them our way, and we'll do our best to have them answered by today's panelist towards the end of the session. And finally, today's conversation will be recorded and posted online afterward. So with that, again, we thank you for joining us here, and we hope that you enjoyed today's talk. Over to you, Dr. Marife.
Thank you, Gabby. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to this forum on democratizing mentorship for the next generation of women change makers. My name is Dr. Marife, and I am Senior Technical Advisor in the ThinkWell Philippine Country Office. We hold this forum today in celebration of International Women's Day. But more importantly, we have organized this forum to honor Samya Rose Stumo, our young colleague from ThinkWell, who passed away 3 years ago today. This forum is in honor of Samya, who believed so passionately in equitable mentorship models for women across the globe. The theme of our conversation today is on democratizing mentorship. All around the world, a new generation of young women health leaders are evolving and emerging. These young women are defying gender norms, creating innovative ideas to transform health systems, discovering new ways to build local healthcare capacity, and creating policy that fits the communities that they know better than anyone. They cannot do it without effective and equitable mentorship. And so during this forum, we will listen to 4 women leaders: Diwa from the Global Fund and Tikhala Itaye from Women in Global Health. Unfortunately, Dr. Rupa Dat, Executive Director of Women in Global Health, is unable to join us, but we are extremely grateful and happy to listen to her colleague Tikhala, who is also from Women in Global Health. And completing our lineup for this forum are 2 emerging young women leaders who are currently fellows of the Samya Stumo Fellowship Program, Nuzulul Putri and Rukhshan Fahmi. We will listen to our 4 women leaders discuss and share their experiences and reflections revolving around our primary question. What is the current state of mentorship for women, and why does it need to be improved? We do want to make most use of this 1 hour allotted for this forum. Thus, we will listen to these conversations in 2 parts. First, we will listen to Diwa and Tikhala, who will share with us their reflections and learning related to mentorship in their journey as women leaders in global health. And then we will invite Ulul and Rukhshan to share their own journey and also to talk about their projects that they are working on as Samya Stumo Fellows. We are looking forward to a robust interaction, and we encourage everyone to post their questions, their comments, and reflections in the chat box, and we will do our best to respond to these questions during the question and answer portion before we close out this forum today. And so in order to start the ball rolling, I would like now to ask our 4 guests to introduce themselves, where you are from, your organization, or the projects that you work with. Diwa, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Marife. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Diwa Samat. I am from Kabul, Afghanistan. I work with the Global Fund as senior specialist focused on health system strengthening, with a particular focus on community systems in response in non-state sector engagement and delivery of services in low-income countries. very happy to be part of this panel today.
Thank you very much, Diwa. It is also an honor to listen to your story today. Next, I'd like to call on Tikhala. Is she in, Tikhala? Gabi?
No, not yet. Could we move forward with the rest of the speakers?
Sure. Yes. Can we then ask our two fellows to say something about themselves? Rukhshan, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rukhshan Fahmi, one of the fellows of Samya Stumo Fellowship program, and I'm working on developing behavioral change communication materials for lower income parents who have got hydrocephalic babies. That's my project, and that is what my project focuses on, and I'm from Bangladesh.
Thank you, Rukhshan. Ulul, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. Good evening from Indonesia. My name is Nuzulul. I'm an assistant professor from Universitas Airlangga, Indonesia, and I'm now one of the Samya Stumo Fellow. Through this fellowship, I have a chance to realize my idea in providing policy evidence and raising awareness on the urgency of implementing fair payment system for primary healthcare facilities in Indonesia. Thank you so much for joining this section.
Thank you very much, Ulul. In order not to lose time, maybe we will ask Tikhala to introduce herself as soon as she logs in, and we just move on now into our conversation. So I'd like first to ask Diwa. Diwa, you were the youngest individual to be appointed Deputy Minister of Health in Afghanistan. That must have been a very interesting experience. And can you tell us what this experience was like for you as a young woman? And what role, if any, did mentorship play in getting you to where you are now? And what were the struggles that you encountered in all of this? We are excited to listen to your story, Diwa. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Marife. Again, I'm very happy and honored to be sharing this panel with wonderful young women and women from different parts of the world and from different walks of life. As you mentioned, being young and serving in position of power is never easy anywhere in the world. But when you have to do that in Afghanistan, it becomes extra difficult, given the context and the tradition, the society's nature of it being traditional. It becomes more challenging. I was part of a program. I was recruited part of a program that was supported by the Afghan government to bring in young people in the Afghan government to be able to accumulate capacity for reform, as back in 2015, Afghanistan was going through transition. So the government was looking for young people to start working in government. And I participated in that program and was able to get into the government. And I worked on health sector reform across sectors initially with Ministry of Health, with Ministry of Finance, Civil Service Commission, and procurement agencies on more technical role. After a while, I was requested to go to the Ministry of Health as Deputy Health Minister to be able to implement these reforms. I was very honored to be given with that role in younger age, because in Afghanistan, more than 70% of our population are below the age 30. So the question is, if young generation are the future of the country, or if they are the today leaders of the country. I was very honored to be given with that opportunity to serve. But as I said at the beginning, this was not easy, because you need to work extra hard to prove yourself, especially when you are women. You need to fight all the perceptions. You are vulnerable to personality attacks. You are vulnerable to many different kind of accusation. You have to work harder to gain respect. So in my role and responsibility, where I had to lead challenging health financing reform in a war zone, I had to also deal with many other problems of me being as a young woman, to prove myself, to talk to people, create consensus, and it was not easy. Definitely mentorship play a very critical role in everybody's success. No matter who you are, where you are, in what position you hold, you need mentorship. And I was lucky to also be able to set some platform for myself while I was working in the ministry. And these platforms were different. Part of this platform was most of people who were reporting to me were older than me. So I was able to create a professional network of older people in the ministry whom I could trust and who believed in the vision I believed in, to help me walk through the bureaucracies of the ministries. I was able to create and link with some young girls in the Ministry of Health who would provide continuous feedback on my performance and give me innovative ideas. I was able to connect with a few women in government who were going through what I was going through, to be able to make it much easier for myself. But I must say, yes, I did struggle. I had to come up with coping mechanism with different form of mentorship. Mentorship doesn't have to be top down. It can be through your colleague, people who even work with you or even under the structure that you are leading. They can be great mentors. That's what I learned. But what I struggled with was the most is on a personal side. On a personal side, what I mean is when you are young and when you're appointed in those roles, sometimes you just want to be yourself. And in those positions, you're always expected to behave in a certain way, be this perfect ideal. Sometimes you want to be imperfect. Sometimes you want to be yourself after a very long day. You want to de-stress. And in those societies, we didn't have the opportunity to be able to get connected for that sort of activities that can help you de-stress in general. Similarly, serving in war zone, going through all the trauma of fighting for your rights. I think also mental health was something that I was struggling with. Although I was deputy health minister, I was promoting it for the nation. But as you go through, you need some form of support in that arena as well, which I think I struggled and I should have subscribed to it way earlier. Just keeping it briefly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diwa. Such an interesting experience for you. Just imagine all the kinds of challenges that you faced. Let me just ask you, in terms of mentoring then, I heard you say that it's not top down. It does not necessarily have to be someone wiser than you. And you're saying that a lot of mentorship that you received were really from your contemporaries or your colleagues within the ministry and young people like you. I'm just curious, how many years from your training did you become, deputy minister? Like how many years were you off university when you were invited to join government?
Thank you very much for this question. So I was born in Afghanistan. I was part of a generation who was born at a time where we had access to education. I was born in the Taliban time in 1995, but I was not old enough to be at school age. My parents, for my elder sisters who were at the age of education, they created an informal underground mechanism of schooling. And I was way younger and I was attending those sessions. And by the time Taliban were gone and a new government was established, I knew a lot more than my peers because I was part of all those schooling mechanisms, and I'm thankful for my parents for doing that. So I started school at 3rd grade directly, and I was, because I already had completed a lot of training 3rd grade, and then I finished school at a very young age, and then I got a scholarship. I went to Malaysia, and then I studied there. I was according to my teachers and everyone, I was a fast learner. My university was a 4-year. I was able to complete it in less than 3 years. And my master's was of 2 years. I was able to complete it in 2 semesters. And I started working at a younger age in Malaysia initially. And then I moved to Afghanistan. I worked for 2.5 years with government of Afghanistan as well, before I became the deputy health minister. And that 2 years of working with the Afghan government, I was able to come up with a proposal for health financing reform that got recognition by the Afghan government, especially Ministry of Health, Ministry of Finance, and Office of the President. So I was requested to step in with the support of government to be able to carry out those reforms. And also, as I mentioned, I was not the only one. There were other younger people who took on the roles as well, but that was government's policy to put some young people in positions of power, thinking that we're not the future only, given that we were 75% and mostly educated, but we could serve as the present of Afghanistan.
Thank you, Diwa. Really very fascinating story and experience. Just before I ask you a question, a last question for now, I'm just curious when you say that mentorship you received from equally young people like you who were in the ministry. Is this something like conversational support when you are just so full of maybe some challenges and frustrations? Would you say that the mentorship you received was a companionship, a journeying together kind of relationship? This is the kind of support that you received from young people like you who were there, or even some of the older people whom you recognized as your mentors?
It was mostly inside the ministry colleague, it was mostly a professional sort of bonding and trying to walk through things together, building consensus together, problem solving together. I was a deputy minister, but I made sure from the day one that I never set it on top. I always made sure that I have roundtables because I wanted to respect everyone. I believed in joint decision making. I believe in working together and with the teams. So I think within the ministry, the networks that I created, they were most helpful to me in terms of walking through together with me and solving the critical problems that we were hoping to address in government in general. So this mentorship opportunity was not only to help me overcome some struggles as I was going through reform, but it was also a bonding relationship. Every one of them had networks of themselves who would talk about it. So it helped me also gain the right influence and the right support within the ministry and within broader sector to be able to carry out those reforms with lesser resistance. Personally, I was able to connect with a few younger people than mine who would just give me personal advice. But on personal note, I needed to rely on people outside the sector, as I mentioned, to few other women who were going through the same stuff that I was going through.
Thank you, Diwa. I guess before I see that Tikhala has joined us, and before I move on to her, I have a question. I think circumstances in Afghanistan now are different from when you began, within the government there. And so how do you think other young women in Afghanistan today, and also other countries around the globe, can have access to opportunities like you did? Would you have any ideas or maybe share some suggestions for this, Diwa?
Yeah, thank you very much. So the situation in Afghanistan at the moment is heartbreaking, and I feel guilty for not being able. I left Afghanistan only a few months ago. I was very committed to continue working in Afghanistan and supporting women in Afghanistan, but I feel I still have some kind of survival guilt until today, not being able to be there and support those women. But I'm proud of all those women who are in Afghanistan and fighting for their rights. In terms of opportunities, the main difference between me and a lot of Afghan women who were born a few years before me is that I got access to education. I had an opportunity to go to school. Our schools were not perfect. We didn't have maybe the right walls or the right technology, but we were given with a platform, and that made a huge difference. I was born in a society where when young girls are growing up, they keep telling you, no, you can't, you shouldn't, you're not allowed to. They help us define a world which is really narrow to certain definitions for us. How can we help young women in Afghanistan or throughout the world to be able to invest in them in their younger age, to be able to recognize their potential and to become the best of who they can be? And these opportunities, we need to fight for these opportunities equally throughout the world. Also giving young women with great ideas the opportunities to lead, something exactly what you are doing. I have met many young people in rural Afghanistan and elsewhere who have great ideas, but it just remains in their brain because they don't have pathways for empowerment. So that's something that we should jointly be working together, and also For Afghanistan, which is my country, I'm pledging through this platform. Again, there are thousands of Afghan girls educated like me, younger than me, older than me, who are refugees today with no undefined clear pathway for their life. They need mentorship. Hundreds and millions of other women who are struggling with their basic education. So pledging from this platform to voice out for their right in Afghanistan, and also other women who face what women of Afghanistan face. Thank you.
Thank you, Diwa. Without a doubt, I don't think you should feel guilt at all, because I am very, very certain that where you are now, you are finding all the ways that you can to provide these opportunities for your fellow Afghan women. I am very certain about that. Thank you very much for sharing your story. Let's move on now to Tikhala Itaye, who has joined us. Tikhala, hello, welcome.
Hi, I'm here and I'm excited to be part of the session.
Yes, Tikhala, can I just first ask you to say something about yourself, where you are from, and your organization or projects that you work with before we move on to some questions. Please go ahead.
Sure. So my name is Tikhala Itaye and I'm from Malawi. I am a lawyer by profession. I've been doing human rights related work, especially advancing women and girls' rights for the past 10 years. I am currently the director of global movement building with Women in Global Health.
Thank you. So, thank you for joining us. So Tikhala, in addition to being a human rights lawyer, you have had extensive experience in building global movements for women and youth, ranging from being the UN Youth Advisor for East and Southern Africa to leading the youth-led organization called HER, spelled capital H-E, capital R, Liberty in Malawi. Can you tell us more about your journey and what types of mentorship you have received in your own career journey, and even mentorship that you may also be doing now? Over to you, Tikhala.
Thank you so much. Where do I start? So I think for me, my journey had started off and kicked off just because of also my own personal circumstances that I personally had gone through. I went to do my studies in Namibia. I went to go study at the University of Namibia, where I did law. And during my studies of studying law, I was in a weird situation in my life where I was trying to figure out, is this something that I really want to do? I kind of just got into it because it seemed really cool. And but throughout my journey of kind of studying that, I had lost my dad. I lost both my parents actually at a very young age to health-related issues. But at that time during law school, I had just lost my father to HIV and AIDS. And I went into law school with just this mind of just trying to understand a lot about, you know, human rights and health-related issues and health equity issues, because where I come from in Malawi, we don't have the best quality healthcare. If you have any chronic illness, you know, accessing to treatment and quality healthcare is so expensive. And I always had a heart of feeling like, you know, it's not fair of the fact that there are poor communities and vulnerable communities that can access healthcare. There's a need for health equity. And I always had this heart of just social justice and health equity when I got into law school, just because of my personal circumstances. And while I was in law school, I had gone through just some lectures there that were men that were, you know, issues of sexual harassment and trying to force me to sleep with them in order for them to give me a better grade. And it was awful. And I couldn't really speak about it and talk about it. And I remember sharing the story of what I was going through with some friends. And when I was talking to them, they ended up telling me that, hey, you know, I'm going the same through this lecture, you know, trying to force me to sleep with them. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know who to report to. And I remember just being in the space of just women coming together and sharing what they were going through. And that was a pivotal moment for me, because one, I gained so much strength from hearing from what other people were sharing, but them also saying, you know, how can we come together and support other women in these issues, because there could be many other girls' experiences on our campus. And that's how my organization was birthed, which is called Her Liberty. And it's about liberating women to speak out and to stand up and to support each other. And through that work we were doing with just Her Liberty and supporting other women, I had met people who had been in the women rights space, who had gone through also their own personal experience with sexual harassment, sexual exploitation, that had really spent time just talking to me and helping me to speak out and to be able to stand up for these issues, to be able to speak out on systems that were against a lot of women. And I think through that just support and someone to speak to who had been in that space had helped me just gain confidence to even lead an organization. And most of the women at that time that had came in and had heard my story had even supported us to set up our organization and how to go about it, because we were really focusing a lot on young women, because a young woman usually are always in the space of not knowing who to talk to, not knowing who to reach out to. So that's how really Her Liberty was birthed. And just through that journey and the work we were doing, our work got recognized by the United Nations, and I got pulled in to this regional network called the African Youth and Adolescent Network, which is supported by UNFPA, United Nations Population Fund. And with that, they were putting a regional committee together of different young leaders. This was about 7 years ago. And within that leadership, they had to appoint a president, and I remember just being in that space and thinking to myself, oh my goodness, can I lead a regional network in the African region? This is a UN level, UN youth advisor, so much responsibility. And just even in that space, as a young woman having that opportunity, I was also lucky to have people within just those spaces and have had leadership roles that had reached out to me and had said, you know what, it's not every day that young women take up this leadership role, go for it. And I think just even that moment of just getting someone to push you there was really helpful, because, you were going against a lot of challenges where there was a moment where there was a guy who was from Uganda and he was like coming up to me because I think he was threatened by my capabilities and my expertise. And he had said to me, it's pointless for you to take the presidential role because you're a woman. Like, what do you know? And interestingly enough, you're hearing all these things and they're playing on you. But I think always have had women in that space that have been like, Tikhala, no, you can do this. You are capable. Don't let other people in this space tell you what you can and cannot do. And I think that was powerful for me. And through that, I went to go and serve in another board called the Global Partnership of Maternal, Newborn, and Child Health, where I played as a board role. And I was working with key people like the former president of Chile and all these other key, and she was a woman, right? And being in that board with another woman, a former president I had an opportunity to learn from her. How did she do it? And learning her leadership style and how she had managed that space had also helped me to think of, I want to do more in women leadership. And that's also what happened after that, where I was now appointed as the chairperson for this global movement called She Decides, that's advancing women and girls' rights globally. And it kind of went through one step and the other, like one step led to the other. But the reason that I was also even getting these different leadership opportunities for the work that I was doing was because of other women that had been at that space, that were opening up that opportunity, that were giving me the guidance and the support needed to even thrive in those spaces that I was in. So really, it had really been just kind of elevating one step to the other in leadership because of that. I did go back to school to do my master's in public health because I had worked with people in that space who said, you know what, Tikhala, you are doing great in this space, but when you have your master's, it also helps in just giving more credibility and evidence that you're sharing in the space that you're working in and research. And that was also because of that guidance as well, I went to go pursue my master's on scholarship. And that support of even getting that scholarship was through mentors as well. So you can just see, just even with the journey that I have personally gone through, even having gone through challenges of losing both my parents, it has really been people and women that have walked me through this journey and have supported me through this journey to be able to have achieved what I've been able to achieve and take up the positions that I've been able to take up.
Thank you, Tikhala. Very, very fascinating story and journey. And I suppose that is the kind of advice you also give the young women that you're working with now in your organization, to believe in themselves and to actually really believe and know that they have the capability. And together with that, keep your ears on the ground for opportunities that will allow you to expand your better. And so what do organizations like Women in Global Health do to practice mentorship? Would you be able to describe or share with us a specific model that focuses on local networks of mentorship, Tikhala?
Yes, no, happy to do that. So with Women in Global Health, so I've come on board and I just started with this February as the Director for Global Movement Building. And some of the work that I do is work with chapter networks. So Women in Global Health currently has 40 chapters in about 36 countries globally. And within those chapters, there is a collective of women that come together with a common interests around advancing health equity and gender equality and women leadership in the global health space. And within those chapters that are set up, there is a leadership that comes together, who we call them the core interest group, who are the ones that kind of set up this chapter. But when they set up that chapter, they invite different members and different other women within the space and within their countries that are working in health to say, hey, do you want to come together within a Women's Global Health chapter for a country where we can support each other and work together on advancing key issues around gender and health in our country? And then those core women leaders would be kind of the leaders for these chapters, but one of their core functions would be to really understand who their chapter members are, but also looking to facilitating capacity building sessions or even learning sessions for their members, because every chapter is different. And some chapters will have young women professionals, that are still learning into the global health space, for example. And those chapter leaders will play a role in kind of supporting them and guiding them about the different opportunities that exist. Having even learning sessions where different women professionals will be able to share their experiences. And those have been some of the activities that have been happening in some of the chapters that have been some form of mentorship to other members. And that's some of the work that we do. We do also do cross-learning because, there's expertise in different countries, and the opportunity from learning from each other is also something that we like to do in our space. How do these different women leaders from the different country chapters come together and learn from one another? How do they find ways to work with one another? And that's been that form of mentorship and learning that we've been providing for our members within Women in Global Health.
Thank you so much. Very, very inspiring. So I'll ask you and Diwa to sit back for a while we listen to our fellows. Samya Stumo Fellowship does provide opportunities for mentorship. We believe, mentorship, as you know, is a two-way relationship, and it is a dialogue that has led to the exchange and continuous refinement of ideas, through which a mentor learns and grows just as much as the mentee. Strong mentors listen and provide perspective on both professional and personal growth based on each individual's mentee's unique cultural and societal experiences. They embrace and support across countries, disciplines, gender, and perspective. This is not a traditional approach to mentoring, where the usual approach to mentoring is a mentor-mentee relationship where the mentee is seen to be lesser and that the mentee needs something that only the mentor can provide. This creates a stark power difference that kind of hinders growth and confidence in those seeking to grow. And so, as I said, through the Samya Stumo Fellowship here at ThinkWell, we are attempting to create a democratized model of mentorship. And over the past year, we have developed the Fellowship of Change-Making Women in Global Health. Have selected fellows from Kenya, Bangladesh, Indonesia, and the Philippines. And these fellows are mentored in two ways. The first is mentorship from a local expert in global health who is able to provide country context as well as subject matter expertise. And the second is a mentorship through a weekly course during which the fellowship manager guides fellows as a collective group to share ideas and learn skills regarding project design and entrepreneurship. And we believe that in this way, a transdisciplinary approach to mentorship becomes an important and vital part because there is so much more to learn from collective membership spanning disciplines and countries. And so at this point, I would like now to invite two fellows from the 2021-2022 Samya Stumo Fellowship cohort, Ulul from Indonesia and Rukhshan from Bangladesh, to join us in this conversation. And I will ask both of them to talk about their projects that they are working on in the fellowship, the type of mentorship that they have been exposed to in their career, and the lessons that they have learned from their mentors and how they have grown from this. Over to you. I will ask Rukhshan first to share her story before going to Ulul. Rukhshan?
Thank you. Thank you. So my project focuses on developing behavioral change communication materials, which are a form of materials that nudges people to positively change their behavior instead of compelling them or forcing them to do an action. So my materials focuses on lower income parents who have got hydrocephalic children. So hydrocephalus is a neurological disorder that inhibits your cognitive development and which usually results in disability and death. So usually what happens is that lower income parents often get baffled what to do with their kids, and they usually don't reach these tertiary level hospitals at time. So these children usually become disabled or face death. So I want to, through these materials, I want to nudge these parents to go to the tertiary level care and facilities at the earliest stage of disease. So that's what my project focuses on. And thanks to my mentor, Dr. Shamima, who is the senior technical advisor from ThinkWell Bangladesh. She's mentoring me, and because of her, I'm here today. She has been constantly supporting me at every step of my fellowship journey. For example, first of all, when I came here, to be honest, I have very less idea about how to implement a project. So I had this idea, okay, within a few weeks, I will develop this poster materials, and it's a very easy thing. There is very less work to do. But when she was very much patient with me, she just didn't tell me at first that, okay, you are being childish or you are being ignorant. She was very much empathetic. She listened to my ideas, and then she discussed with me for hours until she came to understand me, and I became to understand her. I came to understand her. And while we understood each other, I came to realize that how I can make my project much better and what are the necessities or the steps I need to follow to successfully run this project. So she shared her experiences. She didn't go by book, okay, you have to do this, do that. She let me find it myself and keep appreciating me. And I knew she was there for me. And that is the best part of working with her, because I can rely on her, I can trust her, that somebody there will be there for me. Even if I fail, she will be there to tell me that, okay, it's okay, you failed, but there is still a long way to go. So get up and go your way. So thanks to her, I'm here today.
Thank you, Rukhshan. And so what I'm hearing you say is that the mentorship relationship is a relationship of trust. And it enables you to discover and learn on your own rather than these information being put into you and asking you to accept them. Yeah. And would you say that before this kind of mentorship that you have received, have you experienced any other mentorship model that you were exposed to before? Is this the first time for you to have experienced something like this? Or did you have some kind of mentorship in the past?
Yes, I was introduced with different types of mentorship programs in the past while I was in thesis, or mentorship, as Diwa Samad told earlier, that it can come through different terms on different forms. But this type of mentorship is totally different compared to what I had experienced in the past. Because as I told you, it was more like a boss and a employer rather than a mentor and a mentee. Because when you are in a mentorship, a mentor is a leader in disguise. She guides you and lets you grow yourself. But on the other cases, it was more like a hurry, okay, let's finish the project. But here, my mentor is like slow and steady wins the race, and you do your level best. That's the best part of this mentorship compared to the other programs. Thus, I have to admit that my mentor loves teaching. She loves doing her work. So that's what makes our mentorship and mentee relation beautiful, because of her love for this work.
Thank you,
And
Rukhshan.
sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Something I learned from this project is, unless you love doing this work, like mentoring someone is something you have to love. You have to encourage and you have to like and cherish it. So unless you are done doing it, even if you are and sorry for my network problem. So unless you don't like your work, one thing I need to add, that even you may be working in a large organization in UN bodies, but you are not liking the liking of mentoring someone. So it can never work out. So thanks to my mentor, she likes doing it. That's why we are enjoying this relationship, working together.
Thank you very much. So of course, the factor of being passionate and believing in what you do and loving what you do is an important aspect. Thank you. Over to you, Ulul.
Yeah, thank you so much. So actually, my project is about science communication to provide evidence on the importance why National Health Insurance Indonesia must provide fair payment for its primary health care facility. Indonesia is on their way to achieve the universal health coverage, and we started in 2014, and there are so many things that happened during this day about how we should manage the universal health coverage. And because I commonly work with the primary healthcare facilities before, I commonly heard about their comments about this system. There are so many complaints that they say they don't have enough money to provide to fulfill the operational costs, because they don't have enough, they don't get fair payment from the national health insurance and etc. So because of this interaction, I think that I should have to do something, or help them to provide an evidence that this is the real cases in Indonesia. So the government should do something, a reformation on this. So I try to propose this idea in Samya Stumo Fellow. Then this is the very great things from this fellowship, that this fellowship accommodated me the idea that I proposed, and they helped me to focus on what should I do next. That is very great things that I got from this fellowship. So based on the mentorship that I have been got from this 6 months, I have some activities like conducting research, evaluating this payment, because the complex things in the health financing, I can be learned much from my mentor about how should I evaluate the payment system. And then I'm writing a blog series in Bahasa Indonesia to raise the awareness of the health managers and the laypersons in the population about what is the urgency to redesign the payment system. And currently, I also this project evolved much during the process, and right now my mentors help me give me a suggestion on why you don't help them with like creating a risk management plan. This fellowship not only improve my competence in the research, but also help me to be someone that to be researchers, that person that develop me as personal. Because through this fellowship, I know that a researcher is not only researching something to not only recommending the policy, but also to hear the population about what they need, and then they translate it into the research itself.
Thank you, Ulul. Ulul, I hope you don't mind, but I would like to ask you a question. I know that your mentor is a male, right? It's Prof.
Yeah.
Hasbullah, correct?
Mm.
Would you say that there is a difference, or is it something that is just very similar? And I'm going to ask also Rukhshan and Diwa and Tikhala if there is a difference as to whether you have another woman mentor or a male mentor. With you, Ulul, in your experience,
Yeah,
is there a difference?
yeah, I really, yeah, yeah. I really got a great experience mentoring by Prof. Hasbullah Tabrani. Even though he's male, he worked with a lot of women researchers in his team. So I'm very glad to be part of that team. So I can know that there is a real very nice relationship between the male mentor with the all of the mentee, and also that he also tried to push all of the mentee to not consider whether they male or female to be the great one. Like I also work with Dr. Eva and Dr. Iko, who are very great mentee from Prof. Hasbullah, and then they become my great mentor. So I really love the ambience in the teamwork when the male and female colleagues can be collaborate much more and result in a productive recommendation for the policymakers. So that was the great experience for me also, how to coordinate with the others. And even he also introduced me to the networking about how should I communicate with others. And yeah, it's like an example for me how to break the gender bias in the academia. So that was a very great personal development for me also. So I have an image, I can imagine what should I do when I will become the seniors in this part of the academia.
Thank you, Ulul. I've always thought that democratizing mentorship also has something to do with context and cultural, historical context or settings of the mentor-mentee relationship. That's why I'm very curious. And I want to push this similar question to also Diwa and Tikhala and Rukhshan. Does it matter? With the mentorship that you have received and the benefits that you have and the growth you experienced, does it matter if the mentor is a male, or is it important that that your mentors also should be female? Maybe Diwa, I can ask you first.
I think just give me a minute to unmute. I'm having.
We hear you, Diwa. We hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Now we don't. Now we don't hear you. Earlier we did.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, sorry about, there was a technical problem here. So back to your question, I think it's very, I would just emphasize on the point that was made by Rukhshan earlier. Mentorship is very personality driven. It depends on, I would say it doesn't matter if it's male or female, it's about the commitment, personality, and it also depends on mentee's preference as well. As you mentioned, the cultural context in some areas might be different. But in general, I would say that men and women, they can both be great mentors. And I personally have received good mentorship from both men and women. There are good men mentors, there are good women mentors, and I've also seen bad women mentors and bad men mentors. So I would keep it to personalities and both sides' preference.
Yeah, thank you. Rukhshan, any input from you?
Yes, I completely agree with Diwa. So as I mentioned earlier, that mentorship doesn't have any specific gender, color, race, culture. It's a personality, it's an idea, it's a choice, I would say, that I choose to be like this. I choose to let a person grow. And even if we have our differences, I respect the person. So respect, trust, these are all human-centric approach. It's about a human nature. So that's all you need to have be a mentor. It doesn't have to be like we are on the same page, but we are in the same team when it comes to our work. So that's what I think it's about mentorship. Need to be just because I'm a woman, that doesn't make me a better mentor than a man. Because of my personality, I am a good mentor. That's what I believe.
Thank you. Thank you. Tikhala, anything to say?
Yeah, I think for me I think it's really about not necessarily about the genders, but what expertise and support they provide. From my experience, I have had different support from different people, whether it's a man or woman. So I would really say that it really depends. It's not really about the genders, but what type of expertise and experience they bring to kind of support you grow into whatever work or things that you want to do. On a personal level, when I have worked with, when I've had a mentor who's been a woman, obviously it's been much easier to share with a woman about even like personal things on like, oh, I want to get into this career, but I have this boyfriend and I don't know what to do. And she was much easier to share about like things happening in my personal life and relationships and getting married and how does it work with the career and having kids. So it was easy to relate with her when it came to things like that, where, there's specific things that women personally can relate to and can give guidance to. And then the mentor I had who was a man, he was more like very professional leadership development. He was working in issues around sexual reproductive health, and that was the area I started working in. And he had been working internationally. He had the networks that I was trying to get into. So he kind of supported me in introducing me in these different spaces and guiding me on how I, present in these different spaces, how I learn and grow in these different spaces. So yeah, so that's a good example of how I have experienced the different support from a man and a woman.
Thank you very much. I would like to entertain any questions that the participants may have, but until I see some questions in the Q&A box, I'm just going to go on and proceed. I have a lot of questions. This is all very interesting and very rich conversation. And I'd like to address my next question to both Diwa and Tikhala. What do you both think about the models like the Samya Stumo Fellowship in terms of providing mentorship opportunities and access to local women change makers? And corollary to that, what do you think funders can do to help provide more democratized mentorship? Tikhala, I see you in front of me, so I'm going to ask you first.
Sure. Definitely agree that mentorship is something that needs to be highly funded. Without a doubt, because where I come from, majority of young women and even majority of our population come from the rural areas where they don't have access to internet, they don't have access to resources, and they just don't know the different opportunities that are out there. And I look at myself as my own personal journey, and I think to myself, if I didn't have someone who told me, hey, there's this job opportunity in Women in Global Health, oh, there's even an organization called Women in Global Health, you should look into it, I never would have known about it. If I never had someone to help me think through, even after you finish high school, even your undergrad, or, you finish some sort of, career education, you're always thinking to yourself, I don't know what to do after this. I don't know where to go. Where do I start? If you don't even have access to internet, you don't even know where to start. But when you have people around you who are like, Tikhala, you've just finished this, and I know you want to look into this, but here's like opportunities. Here's someone I can connect you with. It helps you really develop personally and professionally. So I would definitely say that mentorship is very key. And even when we talk about democratizing mentorship, I think the key thing also is we need to also bring more awareness in this type of model, because we have seen different mentorship models out there that are very harmful, where it's very top-down approach, and the people thinking this is what I want this person to do and how to do it, and trying to kind of force a lot of things on them where that's not necessarily the journey they want to take. And I think this also goes on to even like parents in the household. A lot of parents, mentorship also starts at the household level, but a lot of parents also have that where they want to tell you, no, I want you to do this, and I want you to do that, and I think you should do this. But I think when we talk about the model that we have here, we want an opportunity for that individual to say, hey, this is who I am, and this is what I'm interested in. How do I get support? How do I build in these different areas I want to build in? And someone actually joining that person in the journey they want to take, and then supporting them through every step. So yes, definitely, this is something that we continuously need to invest in, especially if we want to grow an incredible generation of the next women leaders within our different countries, the region, and the world at large.
Thank you so much. It's 4 minutes to the hour. Diwa, just a short response, please, and then I'll ask one short question after that. Go ahead, Diwa.
Thank you very much. I agree with Tikhala on the way forward. I will try to be brief. So I just hearing from both Rukhshan and Nuzulul their stories of how they are getting mentorship. It's truly inspiring, being able to seek the support to drive ideas in your own respective societies. Being able to co-create solutions with someone who can empower you. Being able sometimes to ask dumb questions, being able to share something, mistakes. I think that's amazing. And I think I wish I had such opportunity when I was in Afghanistan as well. I think this definitely needs to get scaled up from government, and working with someone with an experience of working with government and funders. I think donors, also governments, we need to start having a bottom-up approach to development that includes support for local solution through local people, including young women at the heart of it. Especially that's very important for Global Fund. Young and adolescent women who are actually driving change, especially in our fight against the 3 diseases. So it's very important that we escalate that, and mechanisms that governments and financiers can adopt is, incentivizing such practices through their grants, through their loans, and having intermediaries like non-state providers, CSOs, academia, global think tanks, to be able to provide more organized support to them in different contexts based on their relevant context and based on who is where, and contextualize such mentorship program. That's how I see that, and I'm gonna keep it brief. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Wonderful, wonderful inputs. Very, very inspiring. And I need to synthesize now and close. But before that, there is a question in the Q&A, and maybe can I just do a 1-word answer from each of the 4 of you. The question is, what is one piece of advice that your mentor has given you that has stuck to you? Just very, very quickly, please. Ulul, can I start with you?
The most memorable question from my mentors is when the beginning of the fellowships, he asked me about what you really want to be, and we will start by now to accommodate you. What should you do to achieve your goals? That's very remember for me.
Thank you, Ulul. Rukhshan?
Well, I'm a very nervous person. So during the beginning of my fellowship days, so I was always nervous, and I always thought that I'm jeopardizing the whole project. Maybe I will bungle it up. So my mentor always used to tell this thing that do not worry, you do your part, and I believe in you that your project will turn out just fine. That's the best thing I have.
Thank you. Diwa, anything to share quickly?
Yeah, I think one piece of advice that was valuable for me, especially coming from a mentor, was telling me that reaching to positions of power is just the beginning. It's not the end story, it's a mean to an end. And it just means that you need to work harder, face more hardship to be able to drive impact. That was something that I still have in mind.
Indeed, indeed. So true. Tikhala, just a quick reply.
Okay, quick one. There were 3 words: faith, hope, believe. Believe truly in what you really want to do and how you want to do it. Hope, never stop hoping that you will achieve it, because life will bring you a lot of challenges, but hope will help you keep going towards what you're trying to achieve. And faith, I think one thing about life is faith is sometimes believing on things that are ahead of time and not knowing how that would look like. And I think for me, those kind of 3 things have kept me going, and having a vision and a drive to keep going irrespective of what comes my way to achieve what I want to achieve.
Very well said. Very beautiful messages. Now it's my turn to close this very interesting discussion. What I heard from our 4 panelists today was to say that democratizing mentorship actually means opening your world to various ways of engaging and dealing with colleagues, kindred spirits, some older, some your age, maybe even some younger, but that this relationship is a relationship of trust, where the mentor and mentee are mirroring or reflecting to each other what each other can do in terms of maybe some common goal or aspiration. And as all of you have said, that this mentorship grows if there is common vision and passion shared. Because if you're not interested, and you cannot be a good mentor also in doing all of this. And so democratizing mentorship seems to be and is looking to be a very important ingredient or factor that will allow many of our young women leaders to continue emerging and evolving, and to continue to be given these opportunities, hopefully other than the Samya Stumo Fellowship, also with organizations like the Global Fund and Women in Global Health and other similar organizations as platforms or staging areas, which I heard Tikhala and Diwa also say are very important in order to be able to gain a lot from this mentorship relationship. And so to close this forum, first of all, I would like to extend very deeply, sincerely, gratitude to Diwa Samad, to Tikhala Itaye, to Nuzulul Putri, and to Rukhshan Fahmi for sharing your very inspiring and fantastic and really, really interesting stories. I wish we had more time to listen to these, but I hope we can continue these conversations in some other way in the future. And also, I would just like to say that in honor of our ThinkWell colleague, Samya Stumo, who, as I said, passed away 3 years ago on this day, we thank you all for being part of this important conversation. Samya was a champion for women in health, and the Samya Stumo Fellowship was created to make sure that her work is carried forward. Today's conversation is part of a growing set of initiatives that we are launching through the fellowship. So if any of you, or if you know of organizations or groups that would like to support more of these initiatives or the fellowship at large, we encourage you to please donate and help us continue Samya's vision for the future of health. A future in which those who are passionate about health issues have all the power and tools they need to fix them. If you have any more questions about the fellowship, please feel free to visit our ThinkWell Institute website, or you may also contact Meera Chakravarti, who is the Fellowship Program Manager. All of these information have been added in the chat box, and so that you can contact us or make inquiries or any donations, which are very welcome. And with this, once again, I would like to extend my gratitude to our 4 panelists today. Thank you all very much. And to our participants, thank you all very much for joining us. Have a nice day to all of you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Dr. Marife signing off. Thank you very much.